What you doing? I'm the AC, and this is Otaku News Reviews. This time I'm talking about The Liminal Zone by Junji Ito. It was originally published in the Line app, but it was brought to English by Viz Media on July 26, 2022. This one is a kind of shorter one. There's only 4 stories in it with a little afterwards, a little tiny bit about each one, which I actually always enjoy some of Junji Ito's thoughts into his stories. But yeah, overall, there's about 200 pages total. The 4 stories include Weeping Woman Way, Madonna, The Spirit Flow Aoki, Gihara, and Slumber. If you haven't read this yet, I'm pretty much going to do a recap of each one. Since there are only 4, they're a bit longer than Junji Ito's short stories typically, but a little recap from me, some of my thoughts. That's kind of what's going to go on here. So there are, of course, going to be spoilers like I typically do. I'm going to start with Weeping Woman Way. It's 64 pages long. It's actually the longest one in the story, but it's not the most dense, because that would be the second one I'll talk about. Anyways, this one has to do with an engaged couple, Mako and Yuzuru, going to some city before their marriage called Tohoku. And while they're there, they pass by a funeral where they had this woman that's just crying. And they find out she's called a weeping woman who is brought to funerals to cry, to just, ramp up the emotions. But because of this, Mako starts to cry. She doesn't know why. She's just crying. Well, when they leave to go back home, she's still crying and crying and crying. They go like a fortune teller, destiny teller, something like that. And he tells her that whatever is wrong is back at Tohoku. So they decide to go back. They go to the house and they realize the person that I guess owned the house around a funeral didn't hire a weeping woman like they were originally told was probably the case. So they go looking for her anyways, which they didn't really have much to go on. They just randomly went looking. So that part's a little weird. They didn't even know where to start, but hey, eventually they find it. They find the original weeping woman they were looking after, or saw at the funeral, and she tells them about Orui, who was this legendary weeping woman from died 200 years ago, but cried so much and for all the dead, and that's why they're crying, is so the spirits can be free or rest in peace and something like that. But she cried so much, she created a lake, and she just became this legend. And so much so that her corpse was still being taken care of and was still crying even after death. It had little trenches going down from her eyes. Weird, kind of a cool little thing, erosion and stuff, I guess. I don't know. I wonder if that is even possible, if theoretically someone could just cry forever, if it would erode away, I guess, their skull, because she's just a skeleton, a little corpse at this point. I don't know, but for some reason she dried up until Mago gets there, and they're like, hey, if you cry with us, maybe it'll bring her back. She cries. Not only does it bring her back, everyone starts crying. Corpse goes crazy, eventually blows up, and Yuzuru makes Mako, and they try to go back home again. Barely escape. They're like, I don't even know how we got back. Okay, whatever. But she's still crying, and she cries so much she's eventually taken away by her dad. But then she dies 3 months later, and at her funeral, you'll probably see where this is going. She's still crying even after dad, because she must be the next Orui. And then at her actual funeral, tears ramp up even more. The weeping women find their way there, and then big teary explosion, and she disappears somehow, just out of nowhere. It says in all the chaos. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was an interesting thing. It was kind of cool. You get to see these spirits, an atmosphere of spirits, some kind of cool corpse art, but it's actually really not too much going on with it. It was a little bit of back and forth, but pretty simple story, even though it was the longest. The next one I'm talking about is called Madonna. Yes, you might be thinking of the celebrity Madonna, but apparently there's even more to the name than I realized. And this takes a weird, it's like evil witch woman or angry witch or something like that. And he just Junji Ito apparently was able to make that use the kanji to also mean Madonna. I don't know. He's talked a little bit about it in the afterword, but yeah, Madonna. Yeah, this one is dense. For 60 pages, it tries to cram a whole lot into it. But it's about this girl named Maria Amano goes to Tensei Academy, which is some really strict religious boarding school for girls. And it's weird. There's a lot going on, and it's like, where do you? The main thing of it is the principal is trying. It pretty much just it's talking about like how devoted and beautiful and whatever Maria is, and how she needs to be in these extra classes and go to these special church things. But his wife, who is known as Madonna, Misiu Tenjo, she's really strict and kind of bitch. I mean, she's a really bitch. But apparently, whenever they first got married, she was really nice and beautiful. And before her, he had another wife who was also kind and beautiful. But then, for some reason, she turned nasty and salty. And then, just like this current one, he even had a son with his first wife, Haruyo, but now he's just creepy. And there's this thing going on with him, of him obviously just trying to get with any woman that he calls beautiful, and keeps claiming that they're going to be the next Virgin Mary, which I don't think that he understands what a virgin is, because he's definitely fucking them. Otherwise, how they're definitely not having kids on their own. But there's another teacher called Satomi Kiyokawa, who he's also trying to get with, and it's just crazy. There's all that, but then there's the other part of the story where Maria has a friend called Risa, and they're like caught whispering during like a service, and the Madonna forces them to kneel before a cross for 2 hours. Risa collapses. Then they're talking. This is where Maria learns more about that Madonna and all this stuff. But then weird things are happening where salt starts falling out her ear, and I was like, okay, well that's weird. But remember, I said the first wife was salty. And then right after that, she sees another girl named Akami Sayako, who's like licking this weird, what it obviously looks like a statue, but apparently Maria doesn't realize it. But she's looking at him. She's like saying it's salty. Well, whenever she has to move in a special dorm for special classes and special church services, she's the one she eventually has to move in with. She realized she's also has salt in her ears, just like Risa. She's going to these classes. Everyone's just weird. It seems like they're having salt coming out, going to church, and a lot of salt. This is a salty story, I guess. I don't really know if that. I don't know. But anyways, so at one weird meeting between the principal and Maria, she accidentally ends up spying on the Madonna, just praying to the Virgin Mary, which they're just obsessed with. Obviously, the preacher's doing, just using that as a way to trick women and girls into being with them. But eventually, she realizes she's being spied on, freaks out, calls the assembly, blames it on Akemi, and just zaps to salt and just crumbles, like kind of into a statue. Maria explained, kind of admits that it's her, and then she freaks out. It turns out the statue of the Mother Mary, Virgin Mary, she was praying to this whole time was actually his first wife in the statue. So she's freaking out, and I guess trying to get him. The preacher takes Maria to this other room, just a pile of salt statues, and his son on a crucifix. It's wild. Also a salt person that apparently this Madonna got tired of and also turned to salt. But then he's still on his shit about like wanting Maria to be the next Virgin Mary, and then he just like dissolves the salt. Not even a statue. He just melts into salt. I guess it's melting. Then Madonna comes in here. At some point there's a lightning strike. It sets the place on fire. throughout all the, I don't know, chaos. His and crucified son falls over and impales Madonna, and then Maria flees while the building burns, and then they're able to find their corpse. I guess they're still Saw, but they definitely say their corpse. Maybe her son was actually. It definitely looked like Saw. Maybe not. And they don't believe her, rightly so, because that sounds crazy. Even me, like, describing it now, I'm just like, okay, this was. It's so dense. It needed more. I don't know, but then it's like, I don't even know what more. It's just a weird one. It's not a bad one, but I don't know. It's anything with any, like, kind of Christian, religious, not even overtone. It's just straight up Christian, blah, blah, blah. But apparently there's a Bible or a story in the Bible. I guess I don't know, missed this one or didn't get to it. I don't remember. But there's something about Lot's wife be turning into salt because she turned her back on God and blah, blah, blah. And that's what this whole thing is kind of based on. Junji Ito in his afterword just said he was trying to make up some story based solely around the name Madonna and the way he used it. That was it. That's all the notes he really gave for it. Oh well. The last two stories are more simple, a little bit shorter. I guess about, math, a third shorter. So the next one is The Spirit of Aokigahara. Hopefully saying that right. Long word. Anyways, it's about this couple. One, Norio, Taniguchi, and Mika. Norio has some kind of like progressive disease where he's going to die anyways. So he decides to go out into this Mount Fuji sea of trees to, I guess, die there. And Mika decides she's going to go with him and die too, or at least wait. I don't know if she really said. I don't remember her really saying anything about dying. She might have. She might just gone to witness it. But they get there, they decide to camp out because going any further would be dangerous, which is wild. They went there to die anyways. Why were they camping? Whatever. But at night, then they see this like stream of light, like a beam of something, pass by them, and like the fuck. They go searching. They find what is called like the dragon's mouth, and Rio remembers like I guess some tale about dragon's mouth, how there's a spirit flow, and that must be what they saw. The trees are like sparkless, they're smooth, no leaves, and all that stuff. And Norio was like, oh, I'm going to hold off on dying for a minute. Let's see this. So they stay, and then he ends up going in the spirit flow. When it happens again, he starts feeling better. He's like, I think we're going to keep doing this. And so he sends Marika home, and he said he was going to come back after he's done. Of course, he doesn't. So after 2 weeks, Mika comes back to see what's up, and she comes back and finds him hanging in a tree. No, like chilling, like alive, feeling well, just hanging out, literally. But he apparently made a new friend with someone named Misuya Wada, who also came there, apparently died, but then he joined in Spirit Flow. And it's kind of just this. Mika says she's going to stay with him, try to convince him to come back. He never does. Neither of them do. But what happens instead is they start becoming slimmer, smoother, weird, like just not wormy, but they're just weird, like almost alien-esque kind of forms, and they get real weird with each other. A lot of licking and playfulness among them, and then like teasing Mika because she's not going into it. So eventually one night, she finally gives in, jumps in, but she's swept away by the spirit flow. And they're like, oh, she wasn't strong enough to hang on, blah, blah, blah. Joke's on them. They go, and they decide, there's one little part left out. There's another guy that comes and visit them to check out the cave. He goes in, but runs out panic, same streamline. So, eventually, after Mika disappears, they bring up like, oh, body's looking really streamlined. I'm like, huh. And then they decide to go check out the cave. Fine, flashlight. Convenient. Don't know how long it's been there. I guess not much knows best because it still works. They go in and they see this just pool, and in it is Mika just laying there. Still kind of normal face. I guess her body is more melted into this pool, and then you see all these just like white, almost look like spirits, but I don't like white pointy dicks. I guess I don't know. I don't really know much better way to explain it. But yeah, and then she's like, "Oh, you two were pretty much talking about how they were cowards and they didn't give themselves into the spirit flow, and that's they just stayed stuck to trees. But she came, she got brought in with the spirit flow. Now she's one of them, unlike them." And like, oh, and we do that, and then they just decide to join it, and that's it. It's pretty simple, not much to it. It's just an interesting, weird little thing that kind of happens, and just weird. I guess spirits, they're people. They still say they're people. According to Junji Ito, part of this was like him thinking of like a next evolution for humans or something like that, and that's kind of where the story kind of got its space from. But yeah, weird, simple story, and that's it. And now the last story is called Slumber. It's only about 42 pages, but it's about this guy named Takuya Terada who's supposed to be this future lawyer. I guess he's in law school or something like that. But whenever he wakes up, he feels like he killed someone, and then he remembers it. But it's only when he like goes to sleep that he feels like this is happening. And then whenever he has these memories, the murderer seems like this rock-like baby, and he feels like he's just going crazy. He's thinking maybe it's because of stress from not passing the bar and relying on his parents, and thinking that they're not going to be able to do that forever. But eventually, his girlfriend Konami comes by. She doesn't believe this would be like him, but um, he's buying. He thinks he's like buying stuff that he doesn't remember buying. He went to his apartment one day and it was all different. Stuff was messed up with it, even though it looked the same. Yeah. But she doesn't believe this is him. And then she tells the story of like this guy named Tomoyano who had murders similar to this, but he was executed. So maybe this is a different copycat killer. But she doesn't really have an explanation as to why he would think it was him. But he's convinced. But she says she's going to help him. He wants her to stay with her. He's like, okay, and then leaves. She says she's going to go get a camera and come back the next day so she can have proof that he's not the one doing it. But on her way, she's attacked too. She's able to survive though, thanks to some pepper spray. She's still cut up, but lives and is able to tell him that it was actually his neighbor, and which makes a lot of sense. She saw him. He's like, oh yeah, he saw him. He realized someone he thought witnessed him was actually him, and what the neighbor actually was doing is he was like a self-proclaimed psychologist or something like that, and he was like he was killing people feeling guilty. He has so much evidence. He pretty much just wrote everything out, so it's easy to catch him. But he realized he can like pass this on to Takuya, since they were neighbors. He even made his apartment look just like him, and was trying, I guess, kind of acting like him. I don't know, buying a lot of parkas for some reason. I don't know. It doesn't really explain exactly how he was able to mess with his memories while he was sleeping and stuff like that. So I was just spying on him and trying to act like him. But he was able to pass on his memories to him and make him think he was the one killing. That way, the guilt wasn't on him so much. But he's eventually executed. Takuya still has memories of it, even after the neighbor goes to prison, but especially after he's executed, he's just like he says an avalanche of memories. And because 10 years later, apparently this is first time Konami is seeing him again. She's still scarred up and everything, but she's saying she's healing. And then you see Takuya turn, his face is all weird, and it looks like, and it sounds like he's been taken over by this neighbor again, which I'm assuming is like either some kind of murderous memory or murderous spirit that's just possessing people, and it was probably that first guy who was executed. Tomo was either the original and his spirit passed on to the name of Ryoji, or there's a spirit that went on even longer, and now it seems like it's in Takuya, and that's where that stops. And the last bit of what's in this collection is the afterword, which I already mentioned. It's only 2 pages. It was written back in like the January 2021, so it's been a while for it. But like I said, it gives a little bit of info into some of this story stuff. And there's the 2 more, the first and last one. I didn't really talk much about what he includes in his afterwards. But he says the first one, Weeping Woman Away, he drew with the Japanese ballad Inca style, which was a topic of a woman who cries too much and gutters form on her cheeks where the tears roll down. Those gutters are called sobbing roads. And that's pretty much where he got the idea for that. And then this last one, Slumber, comes just from his idea of like waking up from a kind of long sleep and you're not really remembering what happened. It's like, oh, okay. And also kind of, when he says it like that, it kind of reminds me of Long Dream, which also a really cool one. But this one really had less to do about the sleep itself and more just about the murder. And, but he's had a few based around sleep. I wonder if he has more of a views or thoughts about sleeping. Ask her this, because he has a few stories about sleeping. But the other thing he talks about in it is how the liminal zone came about, like, COVID times. This was his first time doing something on the Line app, and so he could go over like page limits, because in like a physical thing you have to like stay strict because you literally only have so many pages. But with this, it's digital. He can go over his page limit, so these tend to be longer. And this kind of thinking kind of goes into the naming of the collection, the Liminal Zone. Like, it's like a transition kind of zone. And I'm trying to think about the stories. I think it can apply a little bit, but it definitely applies to him, his transition to like this digital, being able to do longer. I think some of these, like I said, Madonna could be even longer. It felt really dense. So I'm looking forward to like longer short stories without having to break them up into chapters. Cause obviously he has collections like Uzumaki Gyo, Tomie is, just different things. And he has like characters, Soichi, they have things of their own, but like a longer, just short story, one chapter kind of thing, that'd be cool. I'd like to see more of that and see what he can do with it, since he has less limits. There are a liminal zone. I don't think liminal and limits is exactly works with each other, but it definitely is like a transition zone for him, and this is something new, and it's cool to see that. If I was to apply this just quickly to like try and do each one, Weeping Woman Way, I don't know, I guess this transition period being sad to being a crying corpse, I don't know, Madonna trying to be just a normal girl or being transitioned into a normal person, into either a sex object or assault. Like I said, this is me. The spirit flow actually is the one that would make the most sense for this liminal zone, because it's like this point of evolution, which she talked about a little bit, and turn into these weird white, I'm assuming they're white, like spirit penisy things that's supposed to be this kind of evolution, and that transition, the spirit flow itself is like the liminal zone. And then with slumber, the sleep itself is probably the liminal zone. It's that moment when you're asleep and waking up and you're not knowing exactly what's going on, and what if something actually happened. So that's how I would kind of connect that with all of this. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts and some recap on the liminal zone. Really interesting stuff. Not, I wouldn't really think any of these are my favorite stories. They're kind of interesting. I think the creepiest one, would have been in Weeping Woman Way, but the thought of like a obsessed religious woman that can turn people salt is scary. But I think the coolest idea is like in Slumber, where like someone being, I'm assuming it's like a murderous spirit and putting those memories into a transition, and just the whole thought of that. Then, spirit flow thing was just kind of weird, but neat too, mainly just weird. But yeah, that's it for Liminal Zone. If you already read it, let me know what you thought. You can, tell me in comments wherever you're listening or watching this. Let me know. It'll be cool. If you haven't, it's still worth reading. I don't know, I probably just spoiled most of it, but hey, a lot of Junji Ito stuff is worth reading. I reread the stuff all the time, so I like it that much. But yeah, you can also email me at dacstories@gmail.com. But yeah, like this, tell people about it. More of my Otaku news reviews and all that stuff. More will definitely be coming. Yeah, if you also, I have a Discord, you can join that and find me there. It's small for now. Hopefully it'll grow. People will care. We talk about Junji Ito, other anime and manga, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, until next time, thank you so much. I'm DAC. Bye.